kind of weird that we always seem to seek out things that scare us. Like, take me, I'm a pretty skittish person, yet I often find myself in situations and circumstances where I know I'm going to have the crap scared out of me. Sometimes it's good, which we'll get to, but sometimes it's very bad, like when I took a trip to San Francisco a few years ago. So I'd gone out to San Francisco to visit a friend and be in his wedding, and I decided to stay a few days afterwards because I'd never been there, and I'm a travel buff, and I liked the beat writers. So I went and did all the stereotypical things. I went to the City Lights bookstore and bought an Allen Ginsberg book, and I had a drink at Vesuvio's, and I was feeling all cool and stuff. But I'm also a big film buff. And there was a really interesting thing happening in the film world at the time. There was an independent horror film that had come out, and it had debuted at a film festival like 2 years earlier to tons of acclaim, and it got bought up for wide distribution, and then it just disappeared for 2 years. And in this 2 years, it built this mythology around it, culminating in a story where Steven Spielberg took it home to his house to watch in his private theater, and when he was done watching it, he went to leave the room, and the doors had been locked from the outside. So this film, it had garnered this like mysterious mythology. It was called Paranormal Activity. Now, forget all the sequels that have watered it down. I mean, horror movies are kind of the dad jokes of films, right? It's the same tired jokes over and over, and it gets jaded. But the original had a real cachet. It was this indie film, if no one's seen it. It's a found footage where it's first person, the people in the movie shoot it. Young married couple, the girl's had trouble with being haunted through her life, and then the obnoxious husband buys a video camera and films everything. And terrible, terrible demonic things happen. And so they finally decide to release it. They're doing a very slow rollout. So they're doing midnight showings at just a few cities across the country, and San Francisco happened to be one of them. And it makes a lot of sense if you've ever been to San Francisco, because it's kind of a creepy town. Okay, so I do travel a lot, and I pride myself on being very good at booking. And so I usually am very good at finding the really cool deals in hotels, and not just cheap stuff, but like the hidden gems, the formerly grand but now passed by time, but still nice hotels, which is like most of San Francisco. But the problem with San Francisco is that if you get more than 2 or 3 blocks from the touristy areas, you're really taking a chance. It's a lot like New Orleans in that way, where if you've ever been to Mardi Gras, inevitably you run into that old New Orleans native who says, "Don't ever venture off Bourbon Street because then you'll be within 20 feet of 1,000 people who want to slit your throat. But have fun." And San Francisco is very similar because I booked a hotel, formerly grand, time passed it by, but still nice, 5 blocks from Union Square. Union Square is one of the hubs of San Francisco. It's where the trolley car starts, big shopping district, lots of tourism. But 5 blocks, holy crap, makes all the difference. Because once you get about 2 blocks from it, you enter this world of bums and crooks and vampires. And I've seen Interview with the Vampire. I know what happens. And yes, I know that Brad Pitt technically lives in New Orleans now, which is cliche. Why do all vampires have to live in New Orleans? But I just knew that Vampire Tom Cruise, or the burnt out husk of Kirsten Dunst, was waiting for me somewhere around that hotel. So what I'm saying is San Francisco is kind of creepy. And they're showing Paranormal Activity, which actually the subject matter of Paranormal Activity is very personal to me. I don't like horror movies anyway, but I especially don't like the demonic possession ones. They're like the worst. Check that. They're number 2, kid ghosts. Kid ghosts is the worst. But number 2 is demon stuff, because through my life I feel like I've had some run-ins with some sort of bad spiritual entities, and like the girl in the movie, an SMU alum, actually, I feel like it's kind of followed me where I've gone. So here I am, creepy city, midnight showing, creepy movie. It sounds like something I should definitely not do. So I go to the movie. Forgive me. But here's the real problem. The movie was appropriately terrifying, and I walked out of the theater scared for my life. But now I was 1.5 miles from my hotel, and I was on foot, and it was 2 a.m. Why was I on foot at 2 a.m.? Well, here's another weird quirk about San Francisco. It is a deceptively walkable town. And I say that because the main hub of the city, the downtown and surrounding areas, the main tourist areas, are all within about 2 miles of each other. But those 2 miles are on a bunch of streets that don't come within a bell curve of being level. Like seriously, if you've ever watched the TV or movies, it doesn't do it justice. This is a city that's built on a series of extreme hills. But because of its compactness, and because of that trolley car, which you can't ride because there's so many tourists riding it, it's impractical, there's like no parking. It would have been more of a hassle to get my rental car out of the hotel valet, because of course it has valet, formerly Grand, but now time passed by hotel, but of course it kept the valet part. But that's San Francisco. It's valet and pay garages, and they're never close to any of the actual fun things to do, so you end up walking a lot anyway, so you just walk. And so here I am outside the theater at 2 a.m., scared to death, 1.5 miles, and I've got to walk through this terrible part of town. But you know what the scary part was? That I didn't come across any of the sketchy characters looking to mug and or kill me. In fact, despite being Saturday night in a pretty major city, the streets were deserted, quiet, eerie. Like I had to walk through Union Square to go back to the hotel, and it was ghost town. So, and it doesn't get better when I get back to the hotel, because this is an old hotel. And if History Channel has taught us anything, it's that all old hotels are haunted. So, I turn on all the lights, turn on the TV really loud on the most vaguely comedic thing I can find in the middle of the night, sit straight up in bed with my eyes just darting all over the room, all the nooks and crannies, because it's got so many of them. There's all these weird angles. It's not like the cookie cutter rooms of today. It's all these weird angles and nooks and crannies, perfect demon hiding spots. So I'm watching. I'm watching for all the demon footprints. I'm watching for the shadows. I'm not getting dragged down the hall like Katie Featherstone. But you know what? That's kind of how I sleep anyway. Doctors say that to get the best night's sleep, you're supposed to sleep in the quietest, darkest room possible. But there's a problem with that. The quieter and darker the room, the more amplified any disturbance of that condition is. So now, all of a sudden, the slightest creak of the settling foundation becomes a hell beast come to drag you off to hell. And then every tiny little shadow of a passing car becomes a poltergeist that wants to pull you through the television set to hell. I mean, basically, it all goes to hell, and that's very terrifying, and I don't understand how you can do it. I mean, there are just so many terrible things, both natural and unnatural, that can get you. I mean, look at it. From burglars to Satan. I mean, all the bad things, if we're to take a lesson from horror movies, happen in dark, quiet rooms. If you're in a dark, quiet room, that means you're about to die. In fact, do you know where you can sleep in a completely dark, quiet room? In a coffin. When you die. I don't understand it. It's not even a bit. I don't get it. I can't do it. When I was 3 years old, I woke up in my bed one night screaming, I don't want to die. Yeah. I woke up screaming, I don't want to die. Scientists, doctors, whoever, they say the kids really don't develop nightmares until they're like 4, 5, 6. It has to come with the more complex brain functions. So, yay, I'm gifted. But the weird thing is that nothing traumatic had happened in the first 3 years of my life. Check that. I lived in Houston. But besides that, nothing traumatic had happened. There was nothing that should have given me an idea of what death was or should have made me so afraid of it. Except that my room was completely dark and quiet, like a casket. And I can't sleep in a casket. So, I sleep with a lamp on. And if I'm alone, usually the TV going. And for some weird reason, I think this protects me. It's weird that I thought that back then, and it's weird as a reasonably intelligent adult man that for some reason I totally believe that this protects me. Like say there's a bunch of demons and ghosts and Slender Man, and they're all walking down the street looking for a house to haunt, and they come up to mine, they're like, oh man, he's got the lamp and the TV on. I guess we can't go in tonight. Oh hey, look at that house over there. It's quiet and dark, and oh my God, there's a tricycle in it. They have kids. Let's possess the kids and kill the parents. Woo! Art. And so early, my mom took steps to get me involved, and I vaguely remember piano lessons that I wish she'd kept me in, and I vaguely remember an art class, but what I remember the most is theater. My mom would always get us season tickets to the Casa Manana Theater in Fort Worth. It's this big Buckminster Fuller-esque geodesic dome that used to be in the round, and they did a children's theater series, and it was amazing. And despite the fact that my mom says that I never said it out loud, I always wanted to get involved. They always had a children's educational program. I wanted to do it so bad, but I take her word for it because of the two of us. The younger one is the one with the memory issues, but I knew that I wanted to perform. And so as soon as I got a chance, I did. And this was the second grade talent show in elementary school. Now, no one had told me to audition for this. Like, no one had ever said, hey, Kris, you've got some talent. You should keep doing stuff like this, because I'd never done anything. Like, there was nothing to say I had any talent whatsoever. My full performing experience was in church Christmas pageants where I played a shepherd. And not even one of the big shepherds that brings the gold and the frankincense and myrrh. No, it's the little shepherd sitting off to the side wearing the acolyte's robe tending to a fake sheep. That's the extent of my performing experience. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to audition for the talent show. But what do? The only frame of reference I had was the previous year's talent show when I'd been in first grade. And what most people did is sing songs. And if I didn't have performing experience, I definitely didn't have singing experience. It was pretty much the church Christmas pageant when with all the other kids we sang, away in a manger, no crib for a day. But hey, everyone else sings songs, so I'm going to sing a song. And the song I picked was Billy Idol's Moni Moni. Because I was nothing if not a very cool 8-year-old. And this is where you got to bear with me for a second. Because for years I've told this story anecdotally because it's appropriately embarrassing and self-deprecating. But I've always remembered that song being on the soundtrack to the movie Cocktail. And yes, I owned the Cocktail soundtrack when I was 8 years old because, again, very cool kid. And the reason I'm so convinced with this is because at that time I was obsessed with that album. I'd gotten it for Christmas and was so excited that I put on the puffy vest I'd also just gotten for Christmas and danced around my living room to the Beach Boys' Kokomo. And someone thought well enough to press the play button on the video camera. My parents had just gotten themselves for Christmas, and now it's captured on tape somewhere. This would be a good time to show that, except one, this is a workshop, and two, well, Kokomo's playing in the background, and I like Brian Wilson, but I don't have any money to give him, so imagine me in a puffy vest dancing around at Kokomo. It's enthralling. So I knew I was obsessed with it, but let's pretend Moni Moni's on that album. So leading up to the talent show, I sit there playing the tape over and over and over, trying to decipher Billy Idol's raspy lyrics, though partly choosing it because they're raspy lyrics and distorted and it's easy to sing over. And the day the audition comes and I get ready, I wear my puffy vest and my mirrored rectangular white sunglasses, tease my hair up a little because, again, very cool, and grab the tape and go to school. I get up on stage. The teacher has the tape. She puts it in. She presses play. Aruba, Jamaica. Ooh, I want to take you to Bermuda. Oh no. I made a huge mistake. As I listened to Brian Wilson sing about all these amazing tropical destinations, I realized that In my amateur preparation for this, I'd rewound the tape, even though Moni Moni was the last track. So I stand there terrified, and the teacher recognizes this. Luckily, she stops it, she looks at me, she's like, "Is that not the right song?" She hits fast forward, stop, play. John Cougar Mellencamp, Rave On. Stop, fast forward, stop, play. Stop, fast forward, stop, play. Stop, and it keeps going, and just with every passing moment, I'm standing there in front of all of my classmates because they took the entire grade down to the gym for the auditions. I'm standing there in front of everyone doing nothing. And so finally she gets to the song right before Moni Moni. To this day, I do not remember what the song is called. In fact, I only remember 2 words from the entire song. Modern Love! And it's not the Bowie song, so I can't figure out what it is. But by the time she got to this song, I was so mortified, and she's like, "Is that it?" And I'm like, "Mm-hmm." Now, because I had not consulted anyone on auditioning, I had not gotten an instrumental tape, I hadn't prepared anything. And so there's actual lyrics going, and I don't know them. So I'm standing up there for the next 3.5 minutes just mumbling while someone else actually sings the song, like, and then just every once in a while yelling out when it came up, "Modern Love!" Modern Love! Modern Love! But I couldn't quit. Man. It would have been worse if I would have dropped the mic and just walked off and given up. It would have been even worse. So at this point, I had to stay up there and go through with it. So I did. But when the song was over, the time came where I was going to have to go back down to my seat, right in the middle of all my classmates on the gym floor. And I knew it was coming. I knew this tsunami of criticism was going to hit me from a bunch of 8 and 9-year-olds who haven't yet learned tact or humor. And so I'm dreading it, and I'm all clenched, and I'm walking. But a funny thing happened on my way to the bottom of the social ladder. Much like when I left the movie, when I left the stage leaving a place of fear, nothing happened. I walked to my seat, nothing. No chuckles, no giggles, no snickers, no scathing glances, no nothing. No one said a thing to me. No one made fun of me, no one with a wry smile. And I sat down, and I had about as big of a realization as an 8-year-old can have. They hadn't done it. Seriously, like only 3 people in our grade auditioned for the talent show. My friend Gary, who was a very good pianist, my friend Brian, who's a very good country music singer, and me. It's just 3 of us. I'd done something that the rest of them were unwilling or unable to do, and I totally owned it. So I didn't make the talent show that year. But I made it here tonight, so